Hey guys, I want to thank you for investing in another episode of the Shareholders podcast, man. It's a blessing to be here, God. It's good. Can't tell you how excited I am about this episode, man. We've been talking business on this show for a while now, and we got to talk big business here. And I have a guest. He is the first person I thought of for this whole huge topic. He's very well versed, as you're going to be able to hear in a minute. We're going to be talking about the Marvel Universe and all it has to offer. My guest today is family, blood, relative, Mr. Todd Exodus, Holy Shinobi Webb. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. It's a blessing to be here.
Man, my guy. Okay, so we're talking today about something that we could probably spend the whole podcast, probably even the whole podcast series talking about, which is the Marvel Universe. For the unlearned, we call it the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, okay? Basically, when you hear the word Marvel, you should at least know. I mean, I don't care if you're 10 years old or 80, you should kind of know the superheroes, the Avengers, yeah, all of that. Now, of course, there is a competing, if you will, group. There's, of course, the DC Universe, but that is, we won't get too deep in the woods on that, but basically, we're not talking about Superman, not Batman, not Wonder Woman, not those guys, not the Justice League. We're talking about the Avengers, Iron Man, and the Hulk, and Thor, and all those guys. So
Right.
I want to explain to you guys, if you don't know, how big the Marvel Cinematic Universe is. Now, it really, well, let me ask, okay, I feel like it really began with the first Iron Man.
Yeah. No, I would say that's true, but I'd say the first Blade movie with Wesley Snipes
right,
is the first. It saved Marvel from going bankrupt, which allowed them to get enough capital to produce, their future product like the Iron Man movie. So yeah, we don't give Wesley Snipes enough credit, but he really did kind of save Marvel comic books.
Right, and I mean, you could really, and so that's the thing about it. I want to say, if you go through the historical canon of it, it is Blade is considered a part of the MCU because it's a Marvel character.
Right.
Even if you go back, man, I'm blanking right now. I just had it in my mind. Somebody else even before that, I think. But again, any of those that were in that, and there's an amazing story very quickly. No, well, let me give my statistic very quickly first.
Right.
Marvel Cinematic Universe, as of November 2020, I'm taking this statistic from, and the Marvel Cinematic Universe is just the movies. We're going to get into the shows in a minute. Has grossed worldwide $22.5 billion, okay, of the 23 films. Now, they're taking that, they're not even counting Blade. They're really taking it from Iron Man series.
Iron Man, okay. Right.
People, let me say that again for you. $22.5 billion. It is the highest grossing film franchise. Sorry, Fast and Furious. It's the highest grossing film franchise of all time. I mean, and it's still rolling. So I first want to ask you this, because you're younger than me. Do you remember Robert Downey Jr. in the first Iron Man?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do. I remember I went to the Dollar Theater with my family. We went to go watch it. And I was just like, man, this is really cool. And it was the end credit scene that hooked me, because I saw they had Ross Thunderbolt, and he said, like something on the lines of, we're putting together a team. And then the movie just ends. And like, I knew what that was all about. And I was like, ain't no way we're about to get the Avengers. I thought that was going to be the next movie. But no, Robert Downey Jr. was something else in that film. Just like I've never seen a character like that before. Definitely an unforgettable experience. I recently just rewatched the first one. I'm like, this still holds up even like for right now, with like the 27 films that came out.
It definitely, that's the crazy thing about it too. That first Iron Man, you could watch that in any kind of sequence and it still holds up. Now, for me, being a little older than you, I remember when it was announced that Robert Downey Jr. was going to be Iron Man, and I was just dumbfounded. I said, what? I said, Robert Downey Jr. I was like, the actor, little actor. He was so it was such a wild swing. It made no sense. I remember thinking like, bro, that's never gonna work. Like they're never gonna. Good night, Marvel. You guys are done because Robert Downey Jr. is not no superhero guy.
Oh, he was just some guy. He was just like okay B-list actor.
Like honestly, I'm trying to think. And no shade. I'm trying to think of an act because it's hard to think of somebody now because everybody wants to be in the MCU.
Right.
But it was just. It wasn't that he wasn't a good actor, but it was just so left field. Like what? You're because back then you're thinking like the Bruce Wayne Batman. Had to be big or Superman, and he just wasn't really a big guy. But turns out it was unbelievable casting, and the rest was history. Now, very quickly as well, I want to bring this up. And I'm sure you know this, but for those of you who don't know, X talked about how Marvel was in trouble and the Blade films barely kept them afloat. In 1998, Sony was offered Marvel.
Yes.
Okay. Now, here's the thing. Sony wanted Spider-Man. And so Marvel was like, sure, we could use some help. But they said, also, we'll give you everybody else on the roster if you want them from Marvel, all of us. Now, I mean, Marvel is everything you see now, all of the characters now. Take it for $25 million.
Yeah.
Now, I just told you guys, it's gross now $225 billion. Sony Pictures could have had the whole catalog for do you know what $25 million is to Sony? Don't just Sony. That's a couple TVs for them. That's nothing. And Sony balked and said, absolutely not. We don't want your Thors and your Black Widows. Who wants these, which
right.
and so
C-list, B-list, C-list.
Right. So I'm sure some people lost their jobs on that. So we digress. So now what I really wanted to get to, because the movies are rolling, the movies will keep coming out. But now Sony has branched into TV. And now, excuse me, not Sony, but Marvel has branched into TV.
Right.
And now we've had series coming out. And the first one, the kind of the new, are they calling it like the fourth generation? What are they calling it now?
They're in phases.
Right.
Yeah. So from Iron Man 1 to the Avengers Endgame, Kevin Feige, who is, like, if you don't know, the executive producer for all the Marvel films. Also, why they're so successful, they got one man at the helm. No shade on the DC universe or anything. Right. But it's called the Infinity Saga. So that's like phase 1, 2, and like 3. And now with, segueing into the shows, we're in a whole different phase for the Marvel universe. Like Tony Stark out of the picture, Cap's out of the picture. So that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, it's a transitional time where, spoilers, Tony passed away in the Infinity in Avengers Endgame.
Endgame, yeah.
And then Cap decided to be old and life. Well, he should. And so there's kind of a transition point now. And so now we're getting into, they're now, because these streaming wars and everybody wants content, and you have, and so Disney is now building their catalog and their, Disney Plus. If you don't have it, check it out. And so now they're getting actually into the TV series. So the first series, which came out, was WandaVision.
WandaVision, yes.
Which tied in Wanda Maximoff and Vision, you know what I mean, and Wanda Maximoff and Scarlet Witch. And they gave them their own theory. So let me ask you very quickly, what was your initial thought of WandaVision?
I was not rocking with WandaVision when it first came out.
Oh, really?
Which is it's because everyone was like, you gotta watch WandaVision. I was like, I do not want to watch some I Love Lucy, Marvel, whatever. So I put it off. I put it off for, I want to say maybe like 5 weeks. I was like, no, thank you. I'm just gonna wait for
5
the
weeks.
Next one.
Wow.
Yeah, so like that's like 5 episodes that went through. But so what's funny is, so I remember people were like on like Twitter and Instagram, they're hyping it up. And I think it was like to the 2 episodes that were left. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna give it a shot. It looks weird. So I binge watched it. And I wasn't feeling episode 1, 2, or 3. When episode 4 hit, I was like, oh my gosh, like it blew my mind blowing. Yeah. So that's my first thoughts on WandaVision. I wasn't rock with it at first. Something about it it was off-putting. I can't tell. It just seemed annoying. But I gave it a shot. I don't know, for real. It seemed overly pretentious of itself, and I wasn't too invested in Vision and Wanda because I knew the comics that they were basing this was off of, and I was like, I hope they don't mess it up. I watched it. I was thoroughly surprised with the WandaVision for sure.
See, I wasn't overhyped for it, but I said, let me try it out. You know, I was intrigued by I was like, where are they going with this? I just I'd never seen, especially in the comic, I'd never seen somebody do something like that where she was literally in a whole different time and had the look. And it kind of, you know, they had a whole 50s feel and then a 70s feel and they were in these sitcom looking things.
They changed the aesthetic every time of
each episode. And my thought was, as you said, Mr. Feige has not let me down, so I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
See where we go with this. And so I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, what WandaVision did suffer from was a little bit of Marvel's own doing, because as it all of a sudden it just mushroomed into a huge phenomenon.
Yeah.
But of course, what happens is the fans start to want to, and they were giving you week by week. This was not in kind of the Netflix mold where you just got to burn through them. So as time would go by, there would be theories and the podcasts would jump up. What is going to happen? Who's behind it? And the theories got so rampant, I think they kind of cut some of the momentum down from WandaVision, because people kind of felt like the finale was a letdown when really we kind of just overhyped it in our minds.
Exactly. You know? They let the let the hubris of the whole thing. They let the whole the fans thought they were in their bag so much. I think that's also what turned me off too. They were just like, theory this, theory that. And when I watched it, I'm like, I'm just watching every single theory get shot down week after week after week. Like, no, that's not a thing. No, there's no Mephisto here. No.
Yeah, oh my God, boy, Mephisto.
There's no Mephisto here. I'm just like, okay, here's what, I'm sorry. I don't want to get on a soapbox on Mephisto. But it's just like, how do you even know who Mephisto is? Some folks are talking to me about Mephisto. Like, you I don't know, not to get gatekeepery or anything, but like, I know you haven't read enough. You haven't put in the work about Mephisto, let alone talk to me. I was in with my little cousin John talking about Mephisto this, Mephisto. Like, sir, don't talk to me about Mephisto. He ain't in the show. Anyway, I digress.
Again,
the theories kind of ate themselves up, and we're disappointed by it.
See, there's levels in my family, guys, and you have a cousin John who knows a little bit, but when I really got to get the knowledge, I go to the big guns and I go straight to X, because he's much more well-read in this. I understand I am a novice. That's why people, you can't think you can't be taught things. Even if you're old like me, you still have to go to someone who knows what they're talking about. So, and I remember X, you kind of like, nah, I don't know about Mephisto. I don't know if I talked to you specifically about that, but I remember somebody was like, it ain't Mephisto. It's not Mephisto. But anyway. And so it was kind of, I felt bad because I'm like, people were like, why didn't they give us? And it was like, they never said they were giving you this. You guys just started going. But it was still an experience. It was one of those things where people kind of thought that after a show like Game of Thrones, we would not have that water cooler show where everybody, but they really proved we could, because everybody was talking about WandaVision. That went from there, and then their next series was the
Falcon and
the Winter Soldier. Okay, which is of course then two characters that were already. I mean, all these characters have been in the MCU and blah blah blah, been in the movies and Avengers and all that. They're getting their own branch offs, and so I think then people were a little more guarded after WandaVision. Like, okay, maybe let's not overdo it, because and the thing is, honestly, I don't know how you feel about this, but it's like, it's too hard for them to have all these series out to try to tie everything to the movie and all that. Yeah. Do you feel like that? I feel like it's.
I'm of the mind right now that there is going to be one major change per TV show, and just one. And everything else is just kind of like fan theory, hyperbole, super, just really getting in the weeds of it. Except for one, which is the latter one, I'm sure you're gonna hit soon. I would say that one has got some juice behind it, I personally feel. But I knew where Falcon and the Winter Soldier were going to go. I knew that, okay, it's all about Cap, you know, who is Cap, what does Captain America represent, and yeah. Oh, I take that back. There's two major changes per show, and I'll give you that theory. Maybe when we get to the last one, I can try to tie it back. But yeah, so I don't try to get too high of hopes, but I'm like, okay, so what is this show trying to accomplish? What permanent change is this character gonna have? It's just one, right? Because WandaVision show. I mean, that's the other reason why WandaVision rubs me the wrong way. Because they did something in bad faith. They did the impossible. They did the impossible and have the nerve to take a character from the Fox, because you know, like you said, they sold shows to Sony, but they sold the X-Men series to Fox, right? Which Disney just recently acquired because Disney likes to eat everything. The thing is, the reason why Wanda and Quicksilver in like Avengers 2 even existed, they had to make them not mutants, so they couldn't infringe on the X-Men name, because at that time they were still X-Men. So their loophole was to make them not X-Men and make them, you know, some sort of accident hybrid, you know, Agents of Hydra type thing. They were powered by the Infinity Stone, something like that, which is great. The Quicksilver, spoiler alert, in Avengers 2 dies. The crazy thing is in WandaVision, they bring back Quicksilver, but it's the Quicksilver from the X-Men franchise in the Fox show. And we're mind boggled because it's like, this is actually, you might as well have Hugh Jackman show up, right, on Wanda's doorstep. All for that to be just a giant joke, like haha in your face. You thought we were doing it. We said we were doing it. We confirmed we were doing it, and they didn't do it. So that one hurt a little bit for me personally.
Well, okay, and let me just really quick for the layman, you got to understand this. Marvel has, like, you know, let's say 500 comic characters, you know, heroes. These movie studios own specific ones. So even though, like you say, if you people are familiar with Wolverine and the X-Men and all that, we have not seen them. They're not in the Avengers. Yeah. Not because they're not a part of the Marvel, you know, they're not in Marvel Comics, but they're in different movie studios own them, and they don't come together. They got their own separate entities. That's why it was such a big deal to have Spider-Man.
Yeah, that was huge.
Because that was huge because Sony owned Spider-Man, and they had Tobey Maguire version, and you know, we're not gonna get in there. We're not gonna go there.
Andrew Garfield. They tried a couple times.
Oh, boy. And we're gonna have to have a separate show just about the best. We're gonna do that. I promise y'all. We're gonna do that because I can't believe the opposition. Anyway, so that's the thing about it. Everybody's buying. Okay, we own the rights to this character. We own the rights to this character, and to try to bring them all together, you have to get permission and all that. So what X is saying is, right, the Quicksilver that came in was and that got a lot of speculation going because people are like, well, wait, if they pulled the Quicksilver from the X-Men, then we ought to be able to see Cyclops and all these.
Exactly.
It's complicated business, folks. It is a lot of things switching around. It's about a lot of money, who's getting paid what, getting paid that. So Falcon and the Winter Soldier comes out, and it was, you know, I thought it was good. You know, I still kind of just love the specter of WandaVision a little bit more. It's still well done. You know what I mean? I enjoyed it. And then that, of course, led to one that I was probably more excited about than the first two, which is where we are now. And we're in the midst of it. It's Loki.
Yes.
Now, Loki, Tom Hiddleston. It is, you know what, X? Let me have you do the honors. Please just give a brief synopsis of Loki for our listeners.
Okay, so if you've been keeping up with any of like the Marvel movies, you know Thor. He's the god of thunder. He's got the hammer, controls lightning. He's from the mystical land of Asgard, and he's got a brother. In the first film, in every Thor film actually, his brother Loki, who is a bad guy in the first one. He's his half brother. He wants to be the king of Asgard, which is Thor's birthright. He sabotages him, he gets put into jail. Listen, nobody watched Thor 2, so that's what happened in Thor 2. Nobody enjoyed Thor. You can't.
Shout out Dark World.
Nobody enjoyed Thor 2, and that's okay. Just know that he got busted out of jail and started becoming a semi-goodish guy, and then the third one comes out. He's like, their dad is dying, and they forges their relationship together, blah, blah, blah. And if you've seen the, spoiler, he dies. in Infinity War. The opening scene of Infinity War 2 is wild. First of all, Thanos is just squaring up with the Hulk, which, wow, first of all, that's hilarious in of itself. And then he snaps his neck, and Loki is dead. That's how we start out the movie, which sends Thor into a giant depression. So yeah, that's what we know about Loki. If you saw the Endgame, it's a big time travel story where they go back to the first events of the Avengers, where Loki, again, he's the main villain in that one, trying to take over New York with the staff and the Tesseract and all that stuff. In that version, they mess up trying to redo the events. He gets the Tesseract and he disappears, and that's all we see at the end of, not even the end, it's right in the middle of Endgame.
Yeah, it was kind of, yeah.
And the movie just goes on. So we're just like, oh wow, that changed a lot. The whole movie's about timelines and stuff like that. So the show picks up, the first episode is right after those events of the first Avengers redo, essentially. And yeah, that's where the show kind of picks up.
So understand something, guys. Now, let me help the older people out that are listening and watching. What Loki did is basically what the Biff character from the Back to the Future franchise did in the second one. When he took the sports almanac, he wasn't supposed to get it, changed, of course, everything, and that's where we get the franchise. So it's Tom Hiddleston, of course, and Owen Wilson, who was great, and Lord, I'm gonna butcher her name, but the beautiful African American actress.
Yes. Her name is like Hunter B15 in this show.
I know. Let me look it up now because I want to give her props because she's really good in it.
She's great. I was very surprised by her performance.
Google there's Google and Rao, and then there's Rooney Masaku as well, with a host of others, and it's very well done. So we're kind of in the midst of it now. And let me, guys, very quickly, let me just tell you, there's a full-on, like, Disney and Marvel, they're not playing games, okay? They've got still so many more shows that are coming. They got She-Hulk, and there's an I Am Groot in the works, which is Groot coming from the
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Which was
sector.
A great franchise, a little branch. See, that's the thing about Marvel. Guardians of the Galaxy was not a major mainstream.
No, absolutely not. It's wild that an 8-year-old can say that my favorite character is Star-Lord now, because that is unheard of. It was unheard of even 10 years ago. I think that's what Marvel is really good at, or Kevin Feige is really good at, because like you mentioned, they carted off a lot of these shows in order not to go bankrupt. So they had a couple of heavy hitters, but they had a lot of B and C list characters. And they took these B and C list characters and transcended them to super stardom.
Yes.
Like, it's what they did, and they did it very well. So yeah, and so Guardians of the Galaxy was just so far out, way far out. No one was thinking about Star-Lord.
I had never heard of them.
Exactly. They made them cool. They weren't cool. They weren't. They weren't in the jet like you would equate to like Wolverine or Spider-Man, or even Iron Man isn't even that cool, or was not that cool in the comic books as he is now. Like,
I remember Iron Man. Again, if you believe it or not, our great Aunt Vi.
Yes.
He had a lot of comics. I remember Iron Man was one. That's where I got on Iron Man. That's where I got on Hulk. They still have coming out. Hawkeye's got a series coming out. Miss Marvel, Moon Knight. I'm telling you guys, it is just they got them all in a row. And so Loki is kind of the next one. Now, what do you have? Do you have any theories right now? I noticed I have not seen the fifth one. I've seen only 4.
Okay, so I'll keep it to the 4th one.
Right. Yeah. See, but I know something big is happening because it's only 6 episodes.
Yeah.
So it might even been the penultimate one in this 5th one. I don't know, but. What do you feel will Loki open up? Well, you probably know by now, so you got to answer a little bit. Is it going to open up more things in terms of the MCU for movies and shows?
That's a good question. And so it's kind of like WandaVision on crack, because what made WandaVision was alluring is that, okay, reality is in question, right? So the Marvel fans could just theorize till the moon comes up, because it's like, okay, so if the reality is in question, we're in an alternate dimension, that means any dimension can be possible within any sort of variant of these characters can be blah, 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 blah. And then they did that a lot in WandaVision. There are characters that are in WandaVision that do exist. So it kind of opened up that possibility. But Loki just takes it to that different level. Only different dimensions or different timelines. So if you don't know, the movie of next year is going to be Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So and they already gave the synopsis for that movie. It's kind of like a time travel dimension hopping thing with all the Marvel magic heavy hitters, right? So they're gonna be going and trying to fix the timeline broken, and you can kind of equate that to what Wanda did and what Loki is doing. And they kind of explain how time travel works for the MCU. And what's cool about it is that they're not abusing the time travel trope, because when TV shows do it, you can always tell they always go downhill. Like, oh God, time travel. Nobody's ever really dead. Nobody's ever really, there's no real consequences. Oh, he died. Let's go back in time to save him. No offense with the Flash or whatever. But yeah, they're really consistent because the time travel logic in Loki is the same one in Avengers Endgame. It's still the same. If you remember, there's a scene where the Ancient One, which is Doctor Strange's, is it the Ancient One? Something like that. Doctor Strange's master explains to the Bruce Banner character how like there's a timeline, streamline, and change something, it branches off into something else. When in Loki they explain, go further, when you do something really bad, it'll do this giant shift in the whole thing. Which is called like a Nexus event, which changes across the history, and there's like a whole, you watch the show, the first episode, they kind of show you there's these time cops. They kind of go back and fix. If you do something bad, you show up late for work, you're supposed to be on time, you gotta go. You gotta get swapped. You got the whole universe because you did the one thing that messed everything up. So yeah, the show has got a lot of promise to it, and they're making a lot of big promises about, okay, this is how we're gonna set up the multiverse in multiple variants. They introduce the concept of variants, which I think is very important.
Yes.
I'm hoping they stick with this, because it will explain a lot. It will explain why Fox and Sony. It's so smart. They'll make it all seamless because every version is just a variant of that show. So we talked about the Spider-Mans, right? There's a theory floating around that the next Spider-Man movie coming out this year is going to be at the end of the year. No Way Home is going to have the other previous versions of Spider-Man in it. And
I heard that.
before, it's like, how's that possible? But now, variants exist. So we can have a Tobey Maguire, and we can have an Andrew Garfield, and we can have a Tom Holland version of Spider-Man. They could also be Peter Parker, just different versions. You know, Uncle Ben died a weird way here, so that's why he looks this way here. You know, and boom. That's what I'm assuming.
And let me tell you, now this goes back. I mean, one of my all-time favorite movies is The Matrix. Now, they of course did 2 sequels to The Matrix. What happened was when they were filming the 2 sequels, they did them together. The woman that played the Oracle, she passed away in the middle of the filming. So in the third video, or in the third movie, I should say, there was another woman playing the Oracle. There was an older black woman that played her, and they got a different older black woman. And so they kind of went with it. And, you know, Keanu Reeves comes in as Neo, and he's like, wait, what happened? And she's like, I know you don't recognize me as before, but things happened in the Matrix that changed me. And I remember being like, can they do that? I was like, wow.
Are they allowed
okay,
to do that?
we're going to go with this, you know.
Right.
And so what you're saying, Tegan, guys, at the end of the day, as much as we love the storytelling, as much as we love the characters, all that, they are in this to make money, okay? And if you can come up with a scenario which is totally brilliant, even though fans might not like, I don't know if the fans all like it or don't, the variant thing. Now, yes, we can have all the Spider-Mans come in and make us more money. It generates more interest. That's how you transition from your Robert Downey Jr.'s. That's how you transition when you're getting done with Chris Evans and all the contracts are up and you need somebody to carry the torch. It's really a smart marketing play.
It's very smart.
It's working story-wise. So what I want to ask you something else, Hex. How is Marvel doing this? Like, what is the secret sauce, do you think? Because like we just said, they took the Guardians of the Galaxy, this very small,
made
obscure,
them
and they are like,
superstars.
they gave them a couple 70s songs, and now these guys like, what do you think is the secrets to their success?
I think once I would attribute it to Kevin Feige for the most part, because once they had one man with the vision, and they had other people who kind of like got it, they could easily just start planning, one event, and then how's it going to tie into the next event, and they kind of have the same directors for a lot of them. So like James Gunn does all the Guardians of the Galaxy stuff, and then one thing is they keep it very organized, right? Even if you watch like WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier and Loki, they have their own little aesthetics, but they're from the bigger show. So they have like the mystical, magical people. So that's like Wanda and Doctor Strange and that whole realm. And then you have the more thriller spy people. So that's like your Black Widow, your Falcon, your Winter Soldier. These are the espionage, Americana like spy people. Then you have your space people, the Guardians of the Galaxy. That's the space section. So they keep them. And then you have like your street level, your neighborhood Spider-Man, right? He's kind of at the ground level, or he's supposed to be, because he's supposed to be the most relatable character out of the bunch. Everyone else, Captain Marvel too, is like space.
Yeah.
Everyone else is literally in the sky. Spider-Man is literally on the ground. That's on purpose. So they keep them that organized. So when they do come together, they're coming from their respective worlds or whatever. And I think that's how it's so successful. It's because one, they managed to both keep them all interconnected, but also separate. So if you like your Thor, you like your magic-y people, you like your Doctor Stranges, that's there. If you like your sci-fi stuff, that's there. If you like space, you have space for it. I think that's their secret as right now. And then tying that into, they pick, if you go back and look at it, they really only have, if it was a comic book, right? Like the Iron Man 1 to Endgame is really like one major event, which is the Infinity War, right? Fighting Thanos. So they're just kind of doing it like that. Every show, every movie is a comic issue, and they keep going and going and going. Big event, slow it down, going to the next event. It's kind of how they do it. They always have a plan. It's never not something. I think that's kind of why they are successful right now in terms of other comic counterparts who are kind of just like making a movie standalone and then not expecting anything of that. More or less. Yeah.
Well, okay. And that's going to lead me to my last question for you. Well, real quick, I just want to say something, guys. I don't know as much, okay, as Holy Shit over here. But the reason why I have clout in this world is because I called it. I bet people, I said, give me the line. Now, we're in Las Vegas. I don't promote gambling, but in Las Vegas, we have lines. I said, give me this is before Infinity War. I said, give me the line, the over-under for Thanos kills. I didn't say in the end game. I just said just for Infinity War. And people argue. I said, it has to be at least 5 or 6. Oh, no. It'll be maybe one or two guys. I said, are you crazy? This is Thanos. Yes. Thanos is coming for people. No, they argue me down. And if you watch Infinity War, Loki gets it early. I can't remember one other person maybe. And I remember sitting through the movie like, man, this could not be it. Like, I think I had like 2.5 people at that point or something toward the end. And I'm like, I could feel everybody just about to clown me like that. Because, I was going hard. Like, all of you are wrong. Thanos is taken out. I said, give me 8, 9. I said that. And then all of a sudden, and it was a little more than 9, wasn't it? It was.
Yeah.
And so, and the crazy thing is, had I known, I didn't know, but if you could have seen me in that theater that night, people are crying. Like, it is.
A lot of sniffles. Yeah.
Bless his heart. Little Spidey is telling, Iron Man, Mr. Stark, I don't feel so
good.
And if you go down my road, there's tears, and you go to me, and I'm like, I called it.
Yep.
Because the respect was not there for Thanos. So anyway, I'm sorry, guys. I had to say that real quick. So, okay, I'm sorry. Let me get back. So my last question, X. why can't DC Comics get right? I know it's a lot. I know that's probably an hour long. You can talk about that, but
yeah, I'll keep it brief.
okay.
It's because they do not want to make money. That's not the real reason, but it's what's permeating through, because they have a guy that they don't want who can really make this franchise maybe really good. I won't say great, but like very, very good if they gave him a chance. He had the nerve to release a 4-hour movie just saying, "Give me a chance."
Yes.
And I had the nerve to watch it, and it was great. And the fact that this is this guy's send-off film is entirely disappointing. So here's the thing: DC has very good characters, very strong characters that are literally like the representation of America, right? You have Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, your heavy hitters, literally the big three. They've been around since the 40s. I've been around since forever. They suffer from these multiple iterations of these characters with different visions on these standalone films that seem to have no interest in tying together. And it's because the head of DC, they kind of just don't want to be Marvel, but they also are upset when they don't get Marvel results, is what it is. I'll leave it at that.
That is a great encapsulation. Man, I'm gonna have you back on. You kind of know this stuff. I like that. Guys, I could talk so much more about this, but we don't have to stop for time. We'll definitely come back because I still want to debate. I don't know how we're gonna do the format for that show, but this Spider-Man thing, I did not know there were so many people still riding with some of these also ran Spider-Mans, but we'll have
there's some ride or dies for some multiple.
Oh my goodness! I just casually brought that up in the opposition. I couldn't believe it, but
it's
anyway,
a subject.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it's real quick. Let me say one more thing. Do you feel like okay? I remember when Disney Plus first started out, some people kind of scoffed, like, "Come on, what do they think they're really doing? Netflix is king and blah blah blah." But do you think that in the streaming now we got Netflix and we got Hulu and there's HBO Max and
Amazon Prime,
Paramount, and there's Amazon Prime and all of that? Where do you feel Disney Plus ranks in that conversation of the streaming wars?
That's a good question. The only thing that makes them all special is what they can only produce. So like their biggest heavy hitters right now are Star Wars and the MCU. Right. And they haven't really capitalized on a lot of the Fox acquisition stuff. They're still trying to figure out how to market that. So they have they have Star Wars and they have Marvel, right? HBO has a lot more franchises, though they're kind of hard to juggle. They have DC, they have everything HBO has ever made. Amazon is doing decent numbers. They have Invincible, they've got The Boys, they've got Jack Ryan and The Expanse, and Netflix is Netflix. So I would say that I would put HBO at the top right now in terms of streaming. Just because they also I think Disney did it first with Soul, having these movies we're in a pandemic, right? For those who are listening to this in like the future, we're in a pandemic right now. People can't go to the movie theaters, so they have doing these same day releases type stuff with these movies. Disney did it with Soul, but HBO has been doing it with a lot of their movies that they own. So, and you don't have to pay extra for it. With Disney, you still have to pay $3 or something like that. So I think HBO, what they are offering, is probably at the top right now. I would put Disney right under that, just because they own Marvel and Star Wars, two of the biggest franchises in the whole world. So that and everything else kind of just shuffle amongst themselves. Yeah. That's how I put it.
I think I literally had a conversation with somebody. I think it's HBO. And I was like, I think it's Disney. I mean, Netflix. Like you said, Netflix is Netflix. But for those that don't understand, you really have to have some original content. I mean, they're gonna shuffle these movies, and you can see Die Hard on different kinds of platforms.
Yeah.
What do you produce? What do you own? It's kind of like Monopoly, man. You got to start buying up some property. There's only so much on the board. So, man, we probably need to do a whole podcast on that too, because that is huge. You kind of touched on that with the pandemic and how they're releasing things, and some stuff's going to theaters and all that. Some's not. Movie theaters are trying to come back. That's a whole nother conversation we'll have to have as well. But Right now, we'll have to stop, guys. I thank you for joining me. Appreciate, man. Exodus, come on. Todd, Exodus, Holy Shinobi Web. Check them out. Where can they find you, man? Give your plugs. You know, you big country.
I am on the Instagrams at
Instagram.
holy Shinobi holy underscore Shinobi with an I.art. That is where I post my art and animation, something like that.
Reading your own IG tag as if you did not know it. That's what I love about you, man. Now, guys, hopefully you know where to find me. This is the Shareholders Podcast, on the Mighty Sharp Network. We will be back, man. We're going to have some more great content coming for you. You know what to do. Always be blessed. Stay sharp. Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate you.